お前の故郷はもうない。
Hello, and welcome back to JinWoo Recaps. This is my recap for the anime Goblin Slayer. If you enjoy my recaps, please think about subscribing and help out the new guy by watching to the end. I beg you. Let's just dive in. The anime starts off with a 15-year-old girl named, well, they didn't give a name, so let's call her Hera. Hera becomes a priest adventurer and chats with the registrar. The registrar tells her rank is porcelain, the lowest rank there is. At the same time, a group of porcelain-ranked adventurers approached Hera to join their team as they lack a priest. The adventurers informed they are taking a goblin hunting quest. The registrar tells them to avoid that quest, due to its danger. However, the adventurers insisted they will be fine with Hera joining. Later, we see the four of them entering the goblin cave. As they head further inside, Hera and the mage get left behind. As Hera and the mage try to catch up with the others, out of nowhere a few goblins arrived and stabbed the mage. Fortunately, the other two adventurers arrived just in time to distract the goblins. However, the mage wouldn't heal even after Hera uses her magic. The other adventurers try to fight off the goblin but end up getting killed. The adventurers tell Hera to run, to which Hera tries to escape with the mage, but the goblins catch up to them. As the goblins were about to kill them, a figure appears and kills the goblins. Hera asks who he is, to which he replies, he is the Goblin Slayer. Hera realizes Goblin Slayer is a silver-ranked adventurer, which is the highest rank for adventurers. Afterwards, Hera decides to tag along with Goblin Slayer and they both work together to kill all the goblins. Hera realizes Goblin Slayer is a master at killing goblins after seeing his precision and knowledge in killing them. After that, Hera decides to form a party with Goblin Slayer. A month later, Goblin Slayer and Hera went to take a quest at the guild. However, the other adventurers talk smack about Goblin Slayer as he only takes goblin-slaying quests. Afterwards, the Goblin Slayer and Hera get a quest which leads them to a mountain castle in the mountains to the north. Goblin Slayer and Hera clear out all the goblins by setting fire to the nest. Goblin Slayer's past is revealed, where he had to watch his loved ones being tortured and killed mercilessly by the goblins while he was a weakling. Goblin Slayer quotes, "He will not let a single goblin live." Later, we see Goblin Slayer and Hera arrive at the guild, where they are greeted by a party of an elf, dwarf, and a lizard man. Their names are not given. Like gives us names for God's sake. The party talks with Goblin Slayer alone and informs that a demon king has been resurrected. The party also mentions that the leaders of elves, dwarves, lizards, and humans gather for a meeting to oppose the horde of the demon king. Goblin Slayer has no interest in hearing this information and asks them what they need to, which they give him a goblin-slaying quest. The party tells the goblins have become active in the elven regions, and the humans would neither attack the goblins nor let any other race attack them. Goblin Slayer accepts the quest and heads together with Hera and the party. They stop for dinner, where they all chat with each other and enjoy their dinner. However, the elf gets drunk and tries to see something of Goblin Slayers. It turns out, it is a scroll which is used to hold ancient magic. Scrolls contain unique spells that can only be used once after unrolling. Dawn breaks, and everyone infiltrates the nest. As they go further inside, they find an alarm trap. However, they were not able to see a totem which indicates a goblin shaman, as only shamans are smart enough for this. Goblin Slayer suspects there is another leading them, and warns the others. The dwarf finds the entrance to the goblins' hideout, but Goblin Slayer insists on going the opposite way. As they go, they find an elf prisoner and save her. They continue further and kill a few goblins along the way, when they finally reach the base of the goblins. Hera and the dwarf cast a sleep spell while the other three kill them off. However, as they are about to leave, an ogre appears. The ogre gets enraged as they killed his army of goblins and attacks them. Although the party attacks and injures the ogre heals and injures Goblin Slayer gravely. The others try their best but fail to kill the ogre. Fortunately, Goblin Slayer uses a gate scroll to kill the ogre. The gate scroll was linked to the bottom of the ocean, so the pressure was used like a blade to kill the ogre. After a few days, Goblin Slayer does all his errands and talks with his busty woman roommate, who apparently sleeps with no clothes.
You serious?
Like my guy is a chick magnet. Let's move on. Anyways, they chit-chat, and the girl realizes Goblin Slayer has made some new friends from the last quest. This shocks our boy as he finally made some human friends. The next day, Goblin Slayer sees his friends at the guild chatting. Goblin Slayer asks them if they would like to join him on another goblin quest. They all accept on a condition that Goblin Slayer would help with another quest of theirs. Goblin Slayer agrees, and they head to a place called Watertown. Goblin Slayer and the others arrived and met a person called the Sword Maiden. She informs them there have been few cases where victims were killed in alleyways. However, the guards managed to kill one shadowy figure just to realize it was a goblin. It is revealed that the government doesn't deploy soldiers as they are in a war with the Demon King. Goblin Slayer guesses they are hiding underground and asks for a map. The Sword Maiden provides the map and they head into the sewers. They encounter many goblins but make light work of them. However, as they continued, the elf sensed something approaching them and they all prepared for battle. As they are anxiously waiting, a big goblin ship arrived and fired multiple arrows at them. Hera uses her blessing to conjure a barrier against the arrows like an angel. Goblin Slayer asks the dwarf to prepare his magic and infiltrates the ship with the lizard man. At last, the dwarf uses a giant stone blast to kill them all at once. Thought the guy was weak, but damn, that was big. I meant the stone. Afterwards, they all gather to catch their breath, just to realize there was a swamp dragon with them. They all run for it but sense more goblin ships in front of them. Fortunately, Goblin Slayer made Hera use light magic on the swamp dragon's tail to lure the goblins. As they leave, Goblin Slayer anticipates. The goblins they witnessed were not multiplied naturally, as they would have known the presence of the swamp dragon. He also states the goblins must have been taught to ride a ship by someone. The next day, they all return to the sewers with a canary. Goblin Slayer tells canaries can detect poisonous gases easily, as the goblins could have been taught to use the ruins mechanism. They explore many rooms and end up in a room where they find a skeleton chained. However, as they were chit-chatting, the goblins closed the door behind them and released some poisonous gas. Fortunately, Goblin Slayer provides materials to cover up the wall. The dwarf and the elf cover the gas holes while the others barricade the door. As the walls were blocked, the goblins smash their way in and a fight ensues. They seem to be doing fine until a goblin champion entered and injured Goblin Slayer heavily. This breaks Hera, and her protection is broken. The goblins then outnumber the others, while the goblin champion approaches and takes a bite out of Hera. Hearing the screams of others, Goblin Slayer rises and chokes the hell out of the goblin champion. Goblin Slayer had flashbacks which enraged him even more. He then stuns the goblin champion and collapses. Afterwards, Goblin Slayer dies and is brought back to life in a palace. The Sword Maiden explains sharing a bed with a virgin priestess can bring people back from the dead. Like I'm dead too. Where's my priestess? Please. I need one right away. However, my boy took it like a Chad and moved on. Fortunately, our boy is unmasked barely, but I guess it's still an improvement, right? Later, the others came by and they all go out for lunch. After, the elf, dwarf, and lizard man went back to the ruins to finish some minor things, leaving Hera and Goblin Slayer alone. Hera and Goblin Slayer fix their gears and go on a date. However, Goblin Slayer doesn't even realize it. At the same time, a few adventurers delivered a package to Goblin Slayer. Later we see everyone going back into a room which has an eyeball creature guarding a mirror. Goblin Slayer and the others devise a plan where the dwarf and the elf distract the eye, while Goblin Slayer releases a substance called fluor. After that, they all leave the room, and Hera uses her protection barrier and encloses the explosion. They all enter and realize the mirror is a getaway to a goblin's home. However, the moment is interrupted when the goblin champion and goblins rush to defend the mirror. Goblin Slayer and the others stall the goblins while Hera and the lizard man remove the mirror. Afterwards, they all take shelter under the mirror, while the dwarf uses his magic on the ceiling which collapses the whole ruin. Fortunately, we see they manage to survive the collapse. Later we see Goblin Slayer approaching the Sword Maiden. They chit-chat, and Goblin Slayer reveals the Sword Maiden knows everything, to which she agrees. Goblin Slayer reveals there were no quests for the sewers, and no precise maps despite how elaborate the ruins were, which meant there was a protector. Goblin Slayer deduces the swamp dragon is a familiar, and also that the victims were staged by her. She reveals she needed help with slaying goblins due to her traumatic past, but Goblin Slayer assures her She could call him anytime and leaves like a Chad. The next day, they all return. Goblin Slayer does his daily routine and spends some time with his friends. The next morning, Goblin Slayer does his daily scouting for signs of goblins when he suddenly found goblin footprints near his house. Goblin Slayer asks his childhood girlfriend to run, but she refuses and tells she will stay where he stays. "Don't leave her, my boy. Hold her tight and never let go." My man got too motivated and started preparing for war. Goblin Slayer heads to the guild in search of help. He requests the adventurers help him kill some goblins. However, they take it lightly. He then informs there could be a Goblin Lord, which is the highest rank in goblins, and states a horde of 100 goblins are approaching to attack. They tease him, saying there should be quests and rewards, to which Goblin Slayer vouches he will give everything in his possession. This makes the adventurers realize he is not lying, and they all agree to help him. A beautiful sight to see, as everyone talk about the good things he has done for them, and prepare to help him. Even the guild master put up a quest for it. Afterwards, Goblin Slayer devises an ambush plan and explains it to everyone. Later that night, everyone took their stance and the goblins appeared. The goblins used human shields, but both the dwarf and the witch casted a sleeping spell. While the goblins were stunned, they saved the hostages. Meanwhile, the elf and archers killed as many spellcaster goblins as possible. Afterwards, the frontliners charged in to attack the goblins. But as they are attacking, they are warned goblin riders are approaching to ambush them. Fortunately, Goblin Slayer anticipated their presence and prepared speared logs to trap the riders and kill them. Just when things were going as planned, hobgoblins and goblin champions arrive to challenge the adventurers. A battle then ensues between silver-ranked adventurers and the higher goblins. On the other side of the screen, the Goblin Lord tries packing his stuff and running, just to realize our boy caught his ass. The Goblin Lord thought he could reproduce and come back stronger, but our boy was one step ahead of the Goblin Lord and killed his home. A powerful battle ensues between Goblin Slayer and the Goblin Lord. However, Goblin Slayer was knocked down after some time. Fortunately, Hera arrives and uses protection to immobilize the Goblin Lord, just enough until Goblin Slayer slashes the goblin's throat. Hera heals Goblin Slayer and they join the others. Later, we see everyone celebrating the win, while Goblin Slayer and Hera are talking. Hera tells Goblin Slayer he could ask for help anytime, and the adventurers would be happy to do so. Goblin Slayer gives the reward for Goblin Lord to Hera, when Hera asks Goblin Slayer to remove his helmet as a reward instead. Goblin Slayer does so and attracts everyone's attention. My man is doing something, but what is it? Everyone comments his looks while he is reminiscing about the journey he has had. Even at the end, they didn't show his full face. But Goblin Slayer decides to become an adventurer, and the anime ends there. If you want the second season, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to not miss out. If this video gets more than 1K views, I will do the second season. See you guys on the next one, so please see it for my sake.